My name is Michelle Montjoy, and I'm one of the artists in the show at the Cannon Gallery, Edges Frayed. Most of my work in there is embroidered work, and I thought I'd lead you in a workshop today in exploring that medium with me. The piece, I don't know if you did or didn't see the show, it wasn't up for long, but the piece that I had there is, that we're gonna work on is something like, was this piece of mine that I called Sigh, and it was a whole bunch of different hankies that all had the word sigh embroidered in them. Some of them were done with type and some were done with handwriting of many of my friends and family. So today what I thought we'd do is explore a word that you are interested in and thinking about, and learn how to spend some time with that word, which I have found personally very healing and thought-provoking for both myself and my friends that I've shared them with. So I'm going to switch to this guy here, and I'll show you some of my previous work that isn't in the show. The first thing we have here is, if it'll focus for me, this piece here is Nourish and Gather. I think about this a lot right now. It goes both ways, like this. I am a big collector of all kinds of domestic textiles that my friends have given me. I have acquired at thrift stores or garage sales, estate sales, things like that. So a lot of these I have made since the lockdown, shelter in place, quarantine time, especially this one, don't touch your face. I've done the type, and then if you can see, these are profiles of faces around there, because every time you say don't touch your face, you end up touching your face. This is an older one that I did on a linen hanky that has another kind of stitching in it. We'll come back to these and look at those. So a lot of times I riff on the design that's on the hanky already. This was one of those weeks in the middle, maybe about a month ago, and this hanky had this beautiful design on it of Liechtenstein, and I just felt to add almost a storm cloud with the words Galum in there. That was definitely what I had been feeling at that time. And maybe now that we're in all of this phases of opening up, this was one of the phrases I thought of too, Patience Grasshopper. And I loved how it went with all the beautiful flowers that were printed in there and everything. So those are some of the works I've done. Let's start with your supply list, what you need. So you need some kind of fabric. You want, I'm a big fan of hankies. I love that they mean, you know, wiping away tears, blowing your nose, offering it to someone. But you can also use a pillowcase. You can use any kind of cotton fabric. Lighter is better. I say white, but it can be light color at all, because the method that we use to transfer the type definitely needs something that you can see through that's light. You also want white paper, or if you have a printer connected to your computer, it's really nice to be able to print the words up in type in your Word program, and you print them up to size and that. You also want some kind of tape. You can either use Scotch tape or painter's tape, masking tape, anything like that. You want a pencil, plain old regular old pencil. You can use a fabric marker. These are lovely. They, if you have them, but you definitely don't need to make a trip for one. I actually don't like them much because they kind of fuzz, and I really like a nice crisp line to follow. But these are really nice. You can mark on your textile and then you just dab it with water and it disappears. Or some of them disappear in a couple days. So you want that. Then you want a needle and thread. I'm going to go over all the different options for that. But and then you want an embroidery hoop, or since those aren't really common in everybody's house, this is an embroidery hoop. This is a plastic one. They also come as wood. You can also use a picture frame. If you have a small picture frame, anything that's smaller than your hanky, you can use an old picture frame that's hanging around, Or you can always make do with a piece of cardboard that you've cut a window out of, like this. So that you can just cut it right out of, this was like shirt board or something. I think I bought stamps and got this cardboard, and we'll wrap our hanky around that, and you'll have an ability to embroider on it. It's not ideal, but it works and it saves you a trip. So the hardest thing, of course, is what word you want to use. And today, I don't know, maybe it's just this week, this is the word I've been thinking about the word contrary. So I typed it up in a couple different type styles and printed them on my computer. I did different sizes. I had already selected this hanky, which I just love. And I love the kind of the floral arrangements on it. A friend of mine gave me this, but you know, it kind of goes nicely with Mary, Mary, quite contrary. So what you're gonna do is tape down your words onto your table. Now, if it doesn't work to do it on your table, you can also use your window, and you tape the words right on your window. If your fabric is thick or possibly dark colored, then you're going to definitely want to use the window for this. But I have this nice thin fabric, and I can see, as you can tell, right through. So I'm gonna look, I see these little swirlies, and I'm gonna use this one here. I really like that typeface there. So I'm going to figure out how I want that word to embrace these little embroidered pieces. And I really like that Y and this little curlicue going together. So I'm gonna lay that down like that, and then tape the hanky to the table. This way nothing moves. You want to do it so that it doesn't have wrinkles, but you don't want to pull it too tightly. Pretty much just as it would be if it was laying on the table like that. If you pull it really tight, when it goes back to normal, then you have kind of some warped looking letters there. Not that that's terrible, but you know, you might not want that. So I really like tracing with a pencil, because the pencil gives me a really nice, crisp guideline. I hold the hanky, you can see I hold it with my fingers like this. And you can also add, before you put this words underneath, you can definitely add embellishments to your letters. Maybe you have a picture that you'd like to draw in with it. Maybe you want to change one of the letters to dropping down way low or something. I was thinking that maybe that Y is going to connect with that. I'll show you how I'm going to do that. But I hold the hanky kind of with my fingers like that. I'll show you the fabric marker. It makes a really nice strong line, but it does get really fuzzy there. And so for my particular viewpoint, I don't dig it. Now, the thing about the pencil is you only get one shot on that, because the pencil doesn't really come out. I mean, it will, but you don't want to use a really dark pencil, just a regular old number 2. And don't push really hard. I'm going to embroider over all the pencil lines. That's why I'm not worried about the fact that it won't come out, because I'm going to embroider just a little bit past actually every one of those lines. So I've got my A in there, and I'm not sure if you can see the pencil lines, but I'll show you once we take the letters out. You'll be able to see it a little better. And you want to do this all in one shot. Don't pick up the hanky and move it again, because you'll never really get it lined up. So I was just thinking that I might want to have this Y kind of come down and connect to that lovely little thing there. Maybe just because of contrary. I thought those would be really beautiful together. So I added those on there. So I think you can see then when I take the words out, I can see the pencil line on there. So again, you can do this straight up on the window. You tape the words on the window, and then you tape the hanky on the window. Pretty much you can see I have a guide to my pencil lines on there. Nothing super strong, but enough that I can see where I'm going. So after I'm done with getting my word on there, and again, I think the hardest part is figuring out what word you want to use. Maybe it's the way you're feeling. It's a way to kind of spend some time with that feeling when you are embroidering it, because this is definitely a labor-intensive skill that we're doing here. But maybe it's funny, maybe it's sarcastic. You know, express your personality in it. That's how I feel about these words. So then I'm going to put mine on an embroidery hoop like this. If I was doing it on my picture frame, I would put it over like this and pin it together like that. Same with that cardboard. I would put it over the cardboard like this, and then I would pin the hanky, and I'd want to pull it about as tight as I could, like that. Again, the cardboard isn't ideal, but it is better than nothing, because it's nice to be able to work from underneath and on top. A lot of people embroider without stretching it on any of these things. You're more than welcome to do that too. For me, I have a ton of these hoops, and so you want to have a hoop that is bigger than your word, but it obviously needs to be held within the hanky like that. So you lay the bottom part of the hoop underneath. The top part is the top part that opens and has that little nut there. So you bring it over like that. Okay, and before you tighten that nut, you do want to pull it so that it's snug. Not tight like a drum, because you'll actually possibly warp the fabric itself, but just nice and snug and all the way around. Just use your thumbs like that. Then tighten it up like that. And then you're ready to go. Okay. After that, then you need to choose what kind of thread you want to use on there. And I use all kinds of things. And I don't go with a real traditional approach to my art, my embroidery, anything like that. I know there are definitely a lot of rules about these things when you're in the highly skilled crafts, but I am all about the expression of what I'm going to do. So what I have here are a selection of threads that I have. Everything from very traditional sewing thread to some of the sewing threads that have, this has a really nice variegation of color. It's actually made for denim jeans. I love the change of tone that goes on in that thread. Sometimes you might want to use really thick threads. It's almost like a carpet. You can use that. This is a type, it's got a gorgeous black and white variation to it. I've used it for a few things. Kind of hard because sometimes the white disappears or the black disappears when you're using it, but if you've got just the right material, I used it on a muslin and it looks really nice that way. Then you have your traditional embroidery flosses. They come in these little packets like this. They contain 6 strands in each thread like this. I don't like to use all 6 strands. To me, it looks a little bit clunky. So, and I'm going to use this kind of maroon color. I was looking at the darkest color in my little pansies that are there, and I thought, well, that would be a nice color to do the word in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull out 2 of the threads, and I'm going to pull them out one at a time. And I'm going to use 2 threads at a time for my piece. So the way you do it is you pull out one like this, and then you just gently pull it out, and you have the one, and then you get the second one, and you pull it out, and then you have your 2 threads. Oh, where'd it go? Always happens when you're on film. So then you've got your 2 threads that are ready to go, and you line them up and you put them in your needle. Now the needle is gonna be kind of up to you. There's a bunch of different kinds. It might be just what you happen to have right in front of you, and so that certainly works. But what an embroidery needle is really nice, and the trick with that is it has a nice big hole. I think you can see that. a nice big hole. Which way can I see that? That you can get the thread in. It's not going to want to focus on that, but trust me, it does. The other kinds of needles have smaller holes like this, and you can certainly use them. You definitely, in a woven fabric like this, you want to use one that has a sharp point, not a dull tapestry needle. You can use a really long needle if you like, if that's more comfortable for you, or if you're going to do long running stitches, you could definitely use a Sashiko needle, or it's also called a darning needle like this. I like the nimble quality of a shorter needle and with a big eye. So you're going to take your thread and thread your needle. And I know that you're not supposed to have knots in your embroidery, but I also kind of break that rule because for me, it's just a lot easier to have a knot at the end. So I'm going to put a knot at the end. If you don't want to, all you have to do is you leave a tail and then you keep wrapping over it. And I'll show you how to do that as we're going along too. But so I have my needle here and it's got a knot on one end and the other side has, it's loose. It has the loose there. That gives me a lot of thread to work with, and I just keep moving along and pull it out of there. So you can start anywhere you want. There's nothing that says you have to, but you do need to decide what kind of stitch you're going to do before you get started. So you may decide that you want to do it like this, where this is called a satin stitch. And if you're doing that, you're going to just keep going around and around and around. You can see that the back side looks the same as the front almost, but you can see I'm making the little breaks in between letters. So that's a satin stitch, and you're just going to be looping around. And that would work great for this because you just don't want that satin, that length to be more than about 1/2 inch, or it'll start getting caught on things as you're working. So that's a satin stitch. This right here is called a chain stitch. Let's get this baby to focus. And it is, there we go. I'll show you how to do that also. That's a chain stitch. That's good for a line. If you just want a line, a chain stitch, or some people call it a daisy stitch also works that way. You can do that. If you're gonna fill in a lot of area, I do it sometimes in this completely random, this one has multiple colors in it. If you can see the multiple colors. So I was thinking of this as more like a painting or a really colored pencil drawing. Has a lot of referencing to embroidery that way. So I have 2 or 3 different colors in there. I also outlined as with a darker line to where the shadow would be on that. These letters also, I just kind of kept moving along and filling along in the straight line around what the letter was going to be. This one here, 2 colors. It's got a gray and a black, and you can see that I'm just doing random stitching all the way around. I think for me, the style of the stitching should really embrace the word also. If it's a real quiet word, use maybe a more regular pattern. If the word itself is kind of, I don't know, you'd want to say angry or struggling, then I use stitching that kind of goes along with that. This is another version of satin stitching, another satin stitching. To do that, I was thinking maybe I'd even outline this afterwards. Sometimes the satin stitching has kind of a rough edge. If you don't like that, you can come back afterwards and outline it on this one here. This is not satin stitching. I did just straight lines. You can see I just kept doing little lines to fill in, and then I used thread of really shiny rayon thread to go around the outside of those like that. This can grow, you know, as you work, but you know, you can just keep doing it, practice and all that. The wonderful thing about embroidery is it's super forgiving. If you don't like it, you take it out. You know, that's really totally fine to be able to do that. So the way you work is I've got this thread, I've got the knot on the end, and you start underneath, and I'm going to show you a couple different stitches so that you can see some stitches as we go. So don't pull super hard, the knot will pop out, but you can do what's called just a regular running stitch, and you go up and back and up and back and up and back, and that will give you like a dashed line like that. That's not super practical in the world of writing a word. So what I do is I go back, after I get a distance on my line, I go back through to like that, back through, and sometimes I do it that way, and then I can complete the line. That's one way of making a straight line like that. You just, every other one, like 1, 3, 5, and then you come back doing 5, 7, 9. That's one way of doing a straight line. Another way of doing a straight line, and you can see, by the way, I'm left-handed, so everything looks a little backwards, but I put one hand underneath and use my fingers to kind of push the needle back and forth. And oh yes, I have paint all over my fingers. So another way to make a straight line is you go up one, forward and under, you go over, under, and then I come back and go back through and then over like that. And that's a nice way to make a straight line. You don't want to pull too tight, it'll get all puckery. You want to keep this stitching to be similar to, you know, so it's a nice, even, flat surface. Okay. So I'm just going back and finishing that serif there. If I want to do satin stitch, I'll show you here. So this part of the Y I'm going to do in satin stitch, filling it in a lot. I'll just start off that way. So what I do is I come up from one direction, I go over to that other line, and I want to come back right next to that thread right there, right next to it. So I come around, again, don't pull too tightly, start right next to the previous one, come up on that pencil line or just past it, right next to the next one. Don't pull too tight, but you're just going around and around and around like that. It's a great way to fill in, especially, you know, a letter, especially with about this distance. I've got about 1/4, maybe 3/8 of an inch that I'm spanning. It does use quite a bit more thread. So if you're running low on your thread, you may want to think about another technique or so. I'm going to show you. So the other way you can start filling in is just kind of this random cross hatching, sort of mark making kind of style like this. I don't think it has a name. I've sort of invented it. It's very much the way in which I make pencil marks. So I thought that would be great to embrace. When I get to where this little thread is starting to get in the way, this little tail, I pull it out a little farther. So I just go along like that, okay? And I just keep till I feel like it's filled in enough with the thread, with the color, so that I can move down a little farther and like that. Okay, so I can do, that's another way. So this was satin stitch to fill in. This is that more random way. You can also do all different kinds of straight lines. I did that on the Gather and Nourish. Just a bunch of lines that are all going in the same direction. So you can do that. They can be random, they can be very regular. Again, I'd let your design sort of tell you what it, you know, is kind of calling you. The typeface you use, that will make a decision about that. Go ahead and just try things out. So after, you know, and you can do this on your hanky and try things out, or you can do it on a separate little sampler and figure out what you want before you go, before you start in on this. But if I don't like any of this, totally fine. I just come back and start gently pulling it all out. And it might leave a hole. If so, you know, again, you don't want to go back and iron it up. The hole will kind of close up a little bit, especially with a steam iron. Cotton is very forgiving. A lot of hankies are linen also. That's a nice thing to embroider on. The only thing you really don't want to embroider on is something that's knit like a t-shirt. A t-shirt tends to get a little bit stretched out. It's really a hard thing to do. So the other stitch I want to show you is what's called a French knot. It's a way of putting texture and a little lump, a little dot is how it, and they're actually a lot of fun. They're also a way you can fill in an area of color. So the way a French knot works is that you take your needle and you bring it close to, I'm going to make that French knot right there. You bring it close to where it's going to be, and you go around your needle 3 times with your thread. 2, 3. I missed, so I did 4. Then you go through the thread, the cloth, and you pull it, and it makes a little knot like that. Okay, I'm going to show you another time. You bring your needle up. Now, you wrap your thread around the needle 3 or 4 times. You don't wrap the needle around the thread like this, okay? I don't know why, but that never works. It never becomes a knot. It just goes through and makes a little blip. So you wrap the thread around the needle 1, 2, 3 times like that. At least 3, you could do 4. Then you go back in just slightly right next to it. You don't go back in the exact same hole. You just go right next to it like that. You pull it through and you got this cute little French knot. You can see it has some definition. It sticks up like that. So if you'd like that nice, cute little lumpy arrangement, you can do a whole bunch of French knots. You can also do those in a whole bunch of colors, maybe in, you know, the palette that you wanted, maybe like this. You can see these pansies are all done in satin stitch, but in a bunch of different colors. Totally, you know, use it like paint. That works out really well too. So there's a lot of different things you can do. And I really hope you have a ton of fun. That's it for me for this. You can definitely reach out and ask me any questions. If things are appropriate, we'll get my email up for you on this and be able to email me if you have any questions about it, because I can't be here with you in person, but I'd love to help you as much as you can. So have a good time, enjoy yourself, and I'll see you when we can all see each other again. All right, thanks.